Welcome, everybody, to the December 3rd annual meeting or end of the year meeting of our Parks and Recreation Commission. I'd like to have roll call, please.
Commissioners Khan,
Here.
Rottfogel,
Here.
Sharkey,
Here.
President Ward.
Here.
The agenda for the December 3rd, 2008 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the City of Glendale's website on Wednesday, November 26, 2008 at 1 p.m. Under Introductions and Presentations, introduction of Richard Bennett, new Commissioner.
Yes, that's me. Unfortunately, we had a little snag in the new commissioner's appointment. I think because if he got appointed now, he would only be able to serve till the end of the year. But Mr. Bennett is out in the audience, and we will introduce him next month at the next meeting.
Right.
So right now it's off the agenda, only because he couldn't get sworn in today. So he can't be.
Well, he got here early, and we all shook his hand, welcomed him on to the commission, and I think it'll be a very good pairing up with this group. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, we'll look forward to that on the next meeting then. Next agenda item.
Item 2B, introduction of Teresa Alexanian, Administrative Analyst.
Yes, there's another one, hidden little snafu here. Teresa is our new administrative analyst. It comes to us from the finance department.
Okay.
Very bright young lady. This is kind of a step up for her, so she's at the first level of the administrative analyst position. She was an administrative associate before in finance. We think she's going to do a fantastic job. In our interview process, she was head and shoulders above all the other candidates. And Coco went to get her right now, but as you can, she comes up.
He's pointing.
There she is. She'll learn that she's got to be up here during the commission meetings. But we think she's going to do a great job. She'll be doing a lot of the administrative analyst type of work, special projects, working with me directly. We'll work with the commission as well. So, Teresa, do you want to just say hi to the commission, maybe talk about how long you've been with the city?
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Welcome.
I've been with the city about 8 years. I was with the finance department in various sections, payroll, general accounting, and currently, or just recently, transferred to parks. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody and providing great service.
Great.
Great. Well, welcome. This is the fun department. This is where we get to get outside and do things. Yeah.
You missed your great introduction, by the way.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know I'd be up first.
We are being honest. We're expecting some great things out of her. She's a very bright young lady.
Right.
Thank you.
Good. Well, welcome. Okay. Next item.
Item 3, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The director may refer to the matter to the proper section for investigation and report.
Okay. I have Gary Puff. You'd like to speak?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here. I have a few questions as to the proposed fees for the tennis facilities at Glorieta and Fremont, primarily Fremont. I'm a resident of Glendale and have been since I was born, and I've been playing tennis at Fremont Park for about 40 years. And there's a group of us, 8 individuals on Saturday, and 4 of us on Thursday nights that play. So we're obviously quite interested in what happens fee-wise and everything. I personally do not have any objection to some kind of an increase in fees. We've been paying the $4.50 an hour over there for
Agenda.
Yeah. There's
10 years or
there's actually another agenda item that we're going to discuss this on. And if you don't mind holding your comments till then, do you mind?
Oh, sure, that's fine.
Because right now, the oral communication really has to do with things that aren't on the agenda.
Oh,
So,
okay. I'm sorry.
Do you mind if I call you back up then?
That's fine.
Okay, because we will be addressing that. And tennis is the next one. So I think actually if there's no other oral communications, we do want to talk a little bit about the tree lighting ceremony that is this afternoon or this evening at 7 o'clock. And Dottie's going to be emceeing the great lighting of the
Mayor.
Christmas tree with the mayor, and hopefully we'll get a special guest that'll come down from up north and visit all the kids and help out. Oh, that's
Montrose area?
no, farther north, way up in the cold. Okay, so that's 7 o'clock out, City Hall right out in the plaza out here, and admission is free, and there's always hot chocolate and candy canes for most everybody. Anything else on the agenda? Next
Oral
item.
communication, okay.
No other oral communications, correct?
Item 4, consent items. A is approval of the minutes of the commission regular meeting held on November 5th, 2008.
Okay, I was not present at that, so is anybody else?
Yeah,
need it?
I reviewed the minutes, and I would make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, do we have a roll call?
Commissioners Khan,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Sharkey,
Yes.
President Ward.
I'll abstain, was not here.
Item 5, business agenda. A, action items. 1 is motion to cancel the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission meeting of January 7, 2009.
Yeah, I believe George contacted me and said that we have a conflict coming forth on January 7th where we have an issue with this room. City Council, I believe, is being reassigned to that date on Wednesday. So if we didn't have anything pressing, whether or not we would go black during the month of January and then have our meeting in February. Is there a date? Is it the first Wednesday in
It would
February?
be the first Wednesday of February.
We have the date because we've been corrected for the last statement on the end of the meeting.
It's February 4th.
Feb 4th? Okay, because we'll correct
There's a
that.
conflict. The city council meetings will be canceled for January 6th. And
Right.
Right, yeah. So
So they'd rather...
that'll delay the introduction of Richard Bennett till the 4th, so make sure we understand, he knows it.
Or if you want, you can move the meeting to another room. It would have to be delayed in terms of being televised. That the issues with GTV6, they can't cover both meetings
Right.
at the same time.
Right. I don't think there's anything pending. Will we be taking action on the tennis issue by then? Or?
No. We want to do not just this meeting. We want to do at least one other meeting where we'll take public input.
Okay.
And then make the recommendation.
So then I don't have a problem. Is there a consensus here on the committee?
I'll move the motion at 4A1, or 4A,
I'll second it.
or 5A1.
Okay, why don't you have a roll call on that action item?
Commissioners Khan,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Sharkey,
Yes.
President Ward.
Yes. Okay, so now we're scheduled for next meeting February 4th.
That's correct.
All right, let's get into the business agenda.
5B, reports for information only. The first one is the Doran Housing and Open Space Project.
I think we have staff from Community Development and Housing and consultants from Heritage Housing. Charles, if you want to come on up. What we wanted to do is, there's a housing project, affordable housing project, that is proposed for Dorn Street, just west of Central. And part of that, the developer is incorporating a small mini park in that development that will also be accessible to the public. And what I wanted to do is I want them to give you an update on that and their plans and whatever feedback you may have that they can take back with them.
Sure.
And with that, I'll call up Charles, who's with Heritage Housing.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon. My name is Charles Loveman. I'm the Executive Director of Heritage Housing Partners. We are a 501c3 nonprofit affordable housing developer based in Pasadena. We've been working with the City of Glendale for about 3 years now to develop a 60-unit affordable homeownership project to be located on Durand Street. I think it's 331 to 343 West Durand, if I remember what the addresses are. And it's to be developed on a 2-acre site. We already own one of the 2 acres, and the city of Glendale owns the other, and we have a pending deal to acquire the 2nd-acre site. It has always been the intent of this project, in order to meet our open space requirements, that we would basically carve out approximately a half-acre out of the 2-acre piece and develop it as an open space as part of the project. but develop it in accordance with and in partnership with the city and Parks and Rec, so that ultimately it's contemplated that that open space piece might be the title of that might be transferred to the city as a mini park. I have here with me our landscape consultant, Evan Mather from Calvin Abe's office. I'll just say a few brief words about the housing piece, and then
We just need to move it off to the side so that people can see it, Charles, sorry.
And then I'll have Evan talk in particular about the concept design for the open space piece that may become a mini park. This is the housing portion is a 60-unit affordable home ownership portion. So this will ultimately be sold to low and moderate income households. Again, as a home ownership development. It sits atop a subterranean parking structure, so all the parking is underground with access off of the alley behind the project. This is Duran. This is looking north. We are preserving 3 existing historic houses that are there on the site today, and then this is all our new construction. The housing portion is built around 3 courtyards and then the major open space feature. And again, the purpose of this meeting is to present to you the concept design for the open space and then get your input about design direction and so forth. So with that, I'll stop talking about the housing and introduce Evan Mather from Abe. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Evan Mather with Abe Landscape Architects. We've done a few park designs for the city of Glendale, so we're excited to continue that relationship. Let me tell you a little bit about Duran Gardens. It's similar in program to the other mini parks in the city. It's centered around or oriented around a central lawn space, the oval, which has a decomposed granite path around it, like a pedestrian.
Would it help if you put that over here to talk about?
Sure.
Okay. That way the cameras can see it too.
Okay. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
The park is oriented around this central oval lawn space. It's got a decomposed granite path around for pedestrian walking around, that sort of thing. 2 play areas flank the decomposed granite path. There's a structure for large or older kids, 5 to 12, and then a smaller tot lot that they kind of a sand area adjacent. These are spring toys, and this isn't programmed. It might have a little water pump for adventure play. This is a trellis structure with seating underneath on that side of the park. Along Duran Street, again, the housing development is here that Charles mentioned. We would enter the park on this central path right here. We're flanked by a citrus grove and some hedgerows. So the concept was working off the concept of the architecture, which is that kind of California bungalow look. What we're trying to create is the feel of an agricultural feel that was something that existed in the city of Glendale 80 years ago. So what we've got is we've got lemon groves, we've got herb gardens, and that sort of thing. So that's what the planning palette is based on. Primarily native, drought-tolerant species. So as we go into the park, we've got the central lawn area, as I mentioned. In order to discourage like soccer use, what we've done is what we want to do is create like a bowl, not a deep 3 foot, but like a shallow 18-inch at the maximum bowl graded. And what we want to try and do is collect the on-site or on-park water and have it collect in this area that is designated as a meadow area. So this might be more water-oriented plants, or at least more water use turf, like a meadow type thing. That's the main gist of the park. There are canopy trees sited throughout. There's some canopy trees on the inside of the turf space. and hedgerows that flank and border the park.
Excuse me. There's no on-site parking, then it's accessible only by sidewalk?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any fences, or is it going to be open on all sides?
We currently are showing fences on this edge, and this edge. We are currently not showing a fence in front.
Just, you described a hedge then?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a barrier of plant material.
A low hedge, yes.
How would people that live in the housing, they would have to actually come out and go onto Doran to access?
There's access at the north side and access on the west side. There's also access directly into the trellis structure on this end as well.
Okay.
Okay. Will that have a lock?
Yes.
Is it a public park, or is it who's maintaining the park?
My understanding is it would be City of Glendale.
So the city of Glendale maintains the park.
So it's a turnkey, basically.
Okay. And no gate along West Duran Street, or is that something you guys are considering?
It's something we are considering.
Yeah, I think Evan's right. We're considering a fence as well, but at this point, didn't put it in there.
Yeah, adjacent to that property, is it residential, or is it a surface street?
On this edge?
Yes.
This is, I believe it's an apartment, multifamily unit.
Okay, so it really only has one frontage to a street?
Correct.
Okay.
And then will you be using recycled water from the city's recycled water system for this park and for the other landscaping?
If it's available.
Should be?
Got lines there.
Yeah.
What is the size of this area that we're talking about, that's the park?
Are you familiar with Harvard Mini Park on the west side of the mall?
Right.
It's a little bit wider than Harvard. Harvard is about as deep. I think Harvard would come to this. Just scaling off, it's about 140 by 140.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, here we go, 132 by 136.
And this is probably not a question that you can answer, but the 3 historic homes, are those also going to be sold, or how are those going to be used?
Those are going to be sold as well. So they'll be rehabbed and sold. Right now, the plan is that there's total 60 units, 57 new units in those 3 units. Right now, the plan is that those will be sold at market, and all the other 57 are going to be sold at lower moderate income prices.
And then in the deed, will it note that it's historic, that it's historic and that it can't be changed, or?
What we have typically done is put a preservation easement on it, but we will work with the city to figure out what the city housing department wants to do. But that's our typical practice.
Good.
What about like restroom facilities or any type of outdoor seating or benches for picnicking and things like that?
There is no restroom facility planned for the park. There are tables and benches, picnic tables primarily under the trellis. We would site benches throughout, and we are showing a few low seat walls in back of the play area and on the park. That would be something, once we get into the detailed design, we would locate those.
More like a neighborhood park, the small mini parks we have.
Like we did
for the
at,
neighborhood.
in Adams Hill.
Evan,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. Your company designed Harvard and Windsor mini parks, didn't you?
Yes, and we did work on Cedar as well.
Okay, so you're familiar with our standards. What's your timeline? What do you think realistically this is going to get constructed? If everything happens the way you would like it to.
If everything happens the way I would like, we'll be breaking ground for the overall project in April, second quarter of next year. We will probably use this portion of the site for construction staging and then do the open space / park at the end of the project, and we're probably looking at an 18 to 24-month construction timeline.
2 years.
And then once that happens, when we get the land, we'll convert that to an SR zone, because currently it's zoned residential. So we'll have to do the conversion to that. And I think, Charles, if once you finish all your questions, he does have a groundbreaking of a similar project, not similar, but in Pasadena, to kind of give you an idea of the type of work Heritage Housing does, and it's really, really good. And I think that's next week, isn't it?
December 11th at 3 p.m. So George will feel free to forward the invitation to them.
Maybe you could email us.
If you're interested, we can email you the information on his
as a
grand
nonprofit,
opening.
I mean, that's a great...
We started as an offshoot of Pasadena Heritage, which is an historic preservation advocacy organization, and with our original mission to do affordable housing in historic buildings, we now do historic buildings and new construction that's with a design that's sympathetic to historic architecture, but that's what we do.
And then the 3 areas that are not part of the park, those are the courtyards?
Yes.
Maintained by the homeowners association, not part of the park system.
Correct.
How big are those courtyards at?
Let's see, they're about 40 by 40. This says 26 by 32, but actually I think when we look at the whole area, it's about 40 or 50. This one's a little larger.
And for the residents, there'll be some simple amenities in that area?
It'll be pretty minimal. In this area, we're on structure, so we're limited by what we can really do, but it's supposed to, because it's a very passive lawn space with some planting and some seating around the tree. This is more programmed. It's like a parterre garden with a fountain and some lawn areas.
Nice.
Yeah, looking at your plan, there's actually no vehicles within that. Everything is underground parking. Even the historic houses will not have garages.
So the historic houses this will all be one 60-unit condominium development. So these will be part of the condominium project, and all of the parking will be subterranean.
So the paths and things that are depicted there are basically footpaths.
Correct. And then there's an elevator serving one set of here to serve these courtyards, and one set over here to serve this courtyard. By the way, I think these are probably measuring more like 60 by 60. And if I could just say a word, in our past experience, most of our buyers are younger families with younger kids. Yeah. So what we wanted to do here is just have some sort of soft play space where they could play in the courtyard or choose to come to the park.
Yeah, I just want to, make sure that if you only have one street access and the big entrance to the park, it's not where everybody gets deliveries of couches and refrigerators and things. It's underground and not through the park. Yeah.
Does any of your subterranean parking go underneath the park? It's all just on
this area.
Is your subterranean park?
Okay. Okay. So the size of the trees, they can
that's
grow.
the questions.
Right. We're all on grade.
Okay. Good.
And the 3 houses have their own yards per se, right? The green space is their yard.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great concept.
Yeah.
Exciting. Well, thank you for the presentation. Any other questions?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. Thank you very much. All right. Okay.
Item 5B2, Program Evaluation, Therapeutic Recreation.
Okay, with that, let me call up Walter Alvarez and Pam Cook, or Carolyn's going to come up and introduce them. The nice thing about this project is it's a turnkey. We didn't pay for the park.
It's like as you develop, you get a piece of park out of it.
Right.
I just make sure that it's developed to your standards, and piping, electrical, everything's up to the city standards.
And they are. They're working with us in the design
If
and construction.
if they've constructed the other mini parks, they know your standards.
Yeah.
Carolyn, next item.
Good afternoon, President Ward and Commissioners. We're very pleased to bring to you your annual report on the Therapeutic Recreation Program for adults with developmental disabilities. And so I'll introduce to you Pam Cook, who is our Recreation and Community Services Coordinator.
Good afternoon, President Ward and Commissioners, and I thank you very much for the opportunity and privilege to highlight our Therapeutic Recreation Program, which many of you are familiar with. Ms. Dottie. The therapeutic recreation program consists of 3 service components: Club Maple, Get Fit, and Pastimes. Club Maple is a weekly recreational, social, educational program at no cost to the participant that also includes a monthly field trip. Get Fit, initially funded by Latterman Regional Center, is now a successful program, a successful component of therapeutic recreation, and really focuses on a healthy lifestyle, fitness, conditioning, and most important, fun and teamwork. Pastimes is another component of the program, and it introduces developmentally disabled seniors to retirement leisure-type activities offered at many of our facilities. Club Maple started 19 years ago at Maple Park. This 19th year of program has been what we like to call our year of choices. The developmentally disabled adult population have had their choices mostly made by parents, grandparents, caregivers, group home or convalescent caregivers. This year, the therapeutic recreation program strives to promote and provide safe and healthy choices. And no matter how big or small the choice, it gives them such a sense of being listened to and to participate in a dialogue with participants and staff and our guest speakers. Choices this year included nominating and electing Club Maple's first president and vice president while learning about the current presidential election that was going on. Choices on what plant or flower they wanted to plant in our first Club Maple garden at the Adult Recreation Center, and more importantly, the choices that they've had to learn to keep it sprouting and growing. Choices on whether to ride the Palm Springs tram on the field trip, or if that didn't suit them, to enjoy a hike. We always promote that's their choice. Choices on eating a healthy snack or meal and doing some form of physical activity at least once or twice a week, and we chart those activities and the healthy eating choices. Choices on whether to sing a Hannah Montana song or dance a High School Musical number or act in a skit about being on the bus to Palm Springs during our second annual talent show at the wonderful Spar Heights Community Center. Anybody that wants to put a talent show on, it's a great location. And always, and I'm thoroughly appreciative of everyone that has been a part of this, of our guest speaker and performances program, people that have volunteered their time and energy to come and talk to Club Maple participants. We've had basic first aid and CPR class by one of our own community services specialists, Adam Porte. We had a wonderful tour of GTV6 by Brian Halloran, a broadcast coordinator. We would really like to thank all of our sponsors for their continued support and their in-kind and monetary donations to make this program possible. They include Acura of Glendale, Anderson's Trophy, Glendale City Employees Association, Home Depot, yes, Minuteman Press, Play It Again Sports, A&TT Wireless, Damon's Steakhouse, Domino's Pizza, Gateway Kiwanis, IHOP Restaurant, Jewel City Bowling, LA Avengers, Lakeside Health Services, Porto's Bakery, that's a favorite, and SportsEye.com. With our annual Club Maple Charity Softball Tournament, we successfully fundraised $7,817 for this program, and the funds are used directly to offset the cost of field trip-related expenditures. Any questions or comments? I'd love to talk about the program.
I missed out on some fun events, didn't I?
Had some very fun events this year, yeah. It's amazing.
Because they're always fun.
Didn't CNN do a spot on this?
Did we see what?
Didn't CNN?
It was actually Time Warner Radio, and they did follow up on the Get Fit program, and it was online. The program was broadcast online.
The Pastimes portion of the program, that's in association with the Glendale?
Yes, because Pastimes is a program that GAR has promoted, and they came to me, and they had been going to another city very close to us, which I said, why would you do that when Glendale has? And so then we introduced them to our Senior Sites ARC. They take Tai Chi, they go up to Spar, and it's a very successful program.
And for people that don't know what GAR is, it's the Glendale
Glendale
Association for the Retarded.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that you listed the project sponsors in your presentation. I think it's very important.
It is.
And I think it's important, too, for us in the community to recognize and patronize these folks that are
Right.
contributing to this. I think it's very important.
Thank you. And I might add that I would say at least 75% of them are return donors, year after year. They sponsor our program.
Great.
Yeah, it's a real great thing that we offer here, and get people and participate. Fantastic.
And, we encourage them to come to any of the events, the
Yeah.
anniversary party, which was at Hawaiian Luau last year, very successful. And next year in April, it's our 20th anniversary, and we're going to be celebrating a Roaring 20s theme and turn Spar Heights Community Center into a nightclub. And
That'll be fun.
we invite you all of that. That's the third week of April.
Pam has done a fantastic
She
job
does.
with this program.
Unbelievable job.
Yeah, thank you.
Everyone.
Great program.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, next item.
Item 5B3, potential fee increases for tennis concessionaires, solicitation of public input.
And I'll call up Joanne Bandito with the Recreation and Community Service section, who's been working on this project.
Hi, President Ward and Commissioners. I'm Joanne Bandito. I'm the Community Service Manager in charge of the sports section. Last November 5th, staff approached the Commission with a proposal to consider a fee increase and a change to the structure of the as far as resident, non-resident fees for pay tennis courts, which are at Fremont and Glorietta Parks. The Central Park is also a pay tennis location, but those courts will be going down in February, March with the construction of the Adult Recreation Center. The fee for the use of the 12 courts in Glorietta and Fremont, as we reported, has not increased since 1996. So we're very much long overdue for a rate increase. The current rental rate is $3 per day and $4.50 night rate. It's per hour per court. It's only at these three locations currently. So we're really going to talk about Fremont and Glorietta because that's what the fees are proposed for. This type of a rate per court has allowed instructors to generate a profit on the courts as they have tennis lessons for anywhere from 1 to 4 to 10 to 20 and sometimes 30 people. So basically tennis lessons, as tennis waned in earlier years, tennis lessons became dominant. And so the courts are sometimes dominated by lessons at prime time, which then allows less time for the public to participate. I need to clarify a few terms that are in the report. For the sake of discussion, a tennis vendor or a concessionaire is exactly the same thing. There's a contract awarded to a vendor concessionaire at Fremont Park, and there is a contract awarded at Glorietta Park to a vendor concessionaire. Two of our vendors are here in the audience this afternoon. For the sake of who rents the courts, the public is the individual player who might rent the court with friends, or it would be a tennis pro, tennis instructor who would also rent a court in order to teach tennis lessons. Tennis pros end up renting the court. They do the hourly rate, plus they have a agreement with each of the vendors in order to use those courts on a regular basis for tennis lessons. So there's an added fee to that our vendors may charge them, according to the current contract. Staff had recommended a fee structure, a proposal based on information that we received from a number of cities. Cities are having a difficult time dealing with either the per court rate or the resident. Do we go by the resident, non-resident, or we go by the per person? So based on what we gathered from a number of cities, and you had the benchmark cities list before you last time, that's how we gathered that information. Since then, staff has gone out to do outreach. We visited tennis court players at the 3 sites. We visited the tennis club at Central Park. And we have had a meeting with the vendors in order to discuss the upcoming potential bid process, how the fees impact the operation of a vendor, the types of pros that are using the court and how are they using the court. We're also trying to identify who actually is using the courts at Fremont and how they're being used at Central Park, so that we can determine where we can shift the clubs, the lessons, the individual players that play there when those courts do go down in February, March. That was like a sidebar that basically was part of the discussion with the vendors. So we also distributed a postcard. We asked the vendors to please distribute amongst the tennis players. We received a mailing list, but it was a little too late to get it out for this meeting because we want to send information out to everyone regarding discussion that we would have at commission, or if we determine that we want to have a community meeting, we would put a postcard out. We do have one of the mailing lists from one of the facilities. If we get the other one, we can send that information out and let everyone know about the next meetings that will occur, that we can get some public input. We're looking for public input. We have input from cities. We're looking for more input from individuals. We've received a lot, and I wanted to help you with some, I wanted to cite some issues that we've seen and items that we have to take into consideration. We found that weekday mornings are predominantly used by the seniors. There are some lessons that take place on the courts, but it's predominantly used by seniors. Some of the seniors have gravitated to these two facilities because they can be guaranteed a particular time frame to play on the court. Some of the other courts are dominated by some people within the neighborhood who come with large groups. Therefore, they don't have the opportunity to get on a court because it's a 30-minute wait time, and friends just continually stay on those courts, and some people just don't have the time. So they've gravitated to these pay courts where they know they can play at a certain time of the day. They've said that the increase, if we increase per individual, that's too high a rate for them. The proposed rates are, the current rate is $3 and $4.50. The proposed rates that were listed on the postcard for consideration and discussion are $2 for seniors, $3 for residents, and $5 for non-residents. So that would be the proposed rate that we would consider.
Person.
Can you
per
give that
person.
to me again? Because I don't see that on the postcard. Okay.
$2 per person for seniors.
Okay.
$3 per person for residents.
Right, okay.
And $5 per person for non-residents.
Okay.
And that's both
That's just a
daytime and
proposal.
nighttime.
That's both daytime and nighttime. It's just a proposal.
Okay.
Which,
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Just to clarify what...
I'm sorry, I didn't see the $2. There it is. I see it.
okay.
The $2.
Which, when you ask about daytime, nighttime, one of the issues that we do have to consider is the fact that our utility rates have skyrocketed since 1996. And the courts have very old tennis electrical structures. I'm not quite sure of the right terms, Gary, but they're very old, and they're using a lot of wattage. It's not new type lighting, so we are burning a lot of energy. So we have also asked, we're considering, should we take into account perhaps instead of a per person, day, night, it's a day, night because of lights, when we have to use lights in the evening. Right now, the fees, the $3 and the $4.50 were based in 1996 on prime time. Prime time is considered at late afternoon, evening. So it's just prime time. It had nothing to do with the lighting. The proposed fees we were looking at the tennis pros who are making money using public courts. They're private instructors. They come and they bring numbers of people. Could be a private lesson, could be a group, but they're using public courts to generate funds. Now, there is a need for that. There is a need for tennis lessons in order to keep tennis going in a community. Once people have tennis lessons, they go out and they play with friends. It's a great social network. You meet people within the class, and then they can go on and they can participate, call people up, and they can get together and play. We have a number of people that use our courts, just drop-in players who will pay the rates, and they have friends from this city or this community. We have friends from all over the areas of Glendale who will come down and they'll get together on a morning and they'll participate. So it's a terrific social sport once people do take the lessons, so there is the need for the lessons on the court. We've discovered that there have been added fees that the vendors have added on for the tennis pros. so that money can be generated on the courts. That's something that we want to investigate, because under the current contract, that's acceptable practice. We would like to take a look at that and see how we can incorporate that type of a practice into the new contract that would go out perhaps in March or April after we determine what the fees would be. Two items were handed to you today. One is a letter from one of our vendors that basically describes from a vendor's point of view how he has operated the court over the years, and suggestions that he has to, for your consideration and our consideration as staff, that we need to take a look at as we go through the bid process that we're going to be going through. The other is you have and it's just one copy, but you have a petition from the Glorieta Park, some of the Glorieta Park tennis users.
Correct, we have that.
Right, and they're asking that the undersigned state that we feel that the instructors make a profit on public courts, they should pay a fair share, and if it necessitates raising fees, then it must be done. We also feel that Glorieta courts should be returned to the public domain to be used by the taxpayers for free. So they're asking that it would not be a pay court situation.
Yeah, one of the questions I do have about these pay facilities, even though we have vendors that are operating and running the facilities, do they have the lock and key and they basically control access to the courts?
Yes.
Do they replace the nets, and do they pay for the resurfacing?
They do not pay for, the vendors do not pay for resurfacing. The vendors pay for lights that go out. We assist with that sometimes, because sometimes it has to do with the ballast system,
Right.
and the vendors will pay for the bulbs, and sometimes we have to assist with the ballast because we can't determine is it the bulb or the ballast, because the units are so
And
old.
they're not paying utilities on the facility?
But they're not, I don't know.
The meters aren't separated where they're paying a utility?
Right. Thank you.
And they do pay for netting and upkeep
They do
of
pay
the
for the
court?
nets. They have to take care of the courts on a daily
Benches,
basis.
trash cans, any
Yes.
of those amenities?
They have to empty trash, they have to take care of all that. They don't resurface the courts.
Okay.
So,
But they have control of the courts. In other words,
yes,
if they're not there, they're locked.
yes, they can lock the courts, right. We went into pay tennis, and they will keep them locked from time to time if the courts aren't being used, because there is abuse of the courts. We have skaters, we have skateboarders, we have people that will abuse the courts at some of our various locations. These are very popular locations, and we want to keep these courts as free of problems that we can. Therefore, these courts evidently in 1996 were selected because of the popularity of tennis at these two locations. These fees are merely a proposal. We made these proposals based on information we received from cities, and now that we're getting more public input, we're asking the Commission, could we continue to review, could we continue to do some outreach, could we continue to get information from the public, and then bring back a potential proposal for you we're not going to meet in January, so potentially we meet again in February to discuss again, where the public can provide information to you or to us, and then potentially come back in March with a proposal.
Yeah, I would like that.
What will happen is the prime time is the morning hours up until, say, 9, sometimes 10. Right. And then it will die out, and then the courts will open back up again, and it'll be well used after 3 o'clock with either schools or people or kids or seniors or lessons.
But now, are the vendors there the whole day, or do they actually lock up and leave, and then do they demand?
Unless they have.
Are they creating that window that they're only there in the morning, and that they're only there in the afternoon? In other words, the people are there because that's the only time they're there with a key and open it.
No, the vendors have tried to be there. They have
So currently they have hours.
Yes, and you can reserve courts, and if there are reservations, then the vendors will open those courts, and the vendors will be there for those people to play tennis.
Okay, and now this fee increase is coming to the city, or is it, it's going to the vendor? The vendor, do we have a percentage that we are guaranteed, or do they have a base rate?
There's a base rate, and according to the bid process, when the bid process takes place currently, these particular vendors bid in 1996 on these two facilities. They pay a certain amount of flat fee or a percentage to the city per month,
Right.
and then whatever they gain above that is their fee.
Joanne, what are they paying us a month? you know,
It
average?
varies at each court because it's based on the number, it's based on the amount of people that you actually use the courts
And how do we
or
audit
the flat
this?
fee that they bid.
I mean, how do we know? How do we audit? How do we know that?
That is one of our issues. We have a difficult time auditing, and that was one of the questions we asked the various cities. How do you audit? How do you go back? Because as we have an auditing section that audits us as a department, how would we prove that this is actually taking place at the courts? And so we struggled with it, and that's why we came to the per person. But in discussing with the vendors, it's very difficult to go per person. That means they have to monitor. That means they may have to, with numbers of courts, how do you keep your gates open? How do you allow people on the court? And then you have to be tracking people down. Right now, some of the vendors have a difficult time just getting the $3 fee on these two sets of courts.
Yeah, but how do you pay? Yeah.
Right.
And then is there a receipt given or what's the actual transaction code, and do we have copies, or is there a way to audit that?
No, there's no way to audit right now.
Okay, and then the other
Have
thing
logs,
is...
but logs come in, and from the logs, we could look and see there, but it would be difficult for us to match it because the logs are active logs, therefore it's, this person's going to do it, they're not, scratch them out, put the next person in.
Yeah, I understand the way things go. Now, you keep talking about an RFP. Are these vendors month to month, or are we still on a contract that has time left on them?
Our contract had expired, and they are now on a month-to-month basis.
So we're planning to set new fees and then rebid?
Right.
The city council.
Right.
With the city council. We'll send, once you approve fees,
Right.
and we've reviewed everything, and everything is ready to go with the bid, and our legal department has reviewed the particular contract, then we will send that to the city council. We'll ask the city council if we can go to bid for the
Request for
contracts.
proposals to get stuff.
Right.
Okay, and then the vendors that are actually operating it, do they have instructors that work for them? I mean, it sounds like there's a fee, and the fee goes to the instructor also, plus that fee, then the instructor charges additional fees for their profit.
The vendor does not collect a student fee when it comes to the lessons.
But
The tennis pro does, and then he rents the court for that flat rate of $3 or $4.50 currently. And what has been happening over the years, the vendors have tacked on that extra fee so that that pro knows he has that court on a regular basis all the time, so he can rent it in advance.
Yeah, I'm just favoritism. If you are a vendor and you have your teachers, and then there's other teachers that want to be on the facility, and they get odd times and odd hours, and you've got the prime guys because they work for you and whatever handshake deals are doing. I mean, it's just, to me, it thinks like it needs to be cleaned up so that it's,
right.
You know, it's
And we
all
found
in the
that-
RFP and written down and stuff, so that if we're increasing fees, the fees are coming back to support the department, not going to make a concessionaire more profitable. I mean, that's...
It's actually not the concessionaires that are gaining this large profit, it's actually the tennis pros that are gaining the large profit because of the low fee.
Of our currents. Yeah, and then the other thing is, I noticed on the list of facilities, I was not at the last meeting, I didn't have it in front of me, but we have 4 public lighted courts that are free, and we have 7 public courts that are free,
right,
that aren't lighted. And then Shoal, which is basically a park facility, has a concessionaire that has a complete different set of fees and schedules.
That's American Golf that runs the
Right.
tennis concession.
And are we going to get more closer to their fees or close in compliance?
Right.
That's at 10
My
court.
understanding is right now, which we have to check the current fees because we've done this study now for like probably 5-6 months ago, and if anyone has increased fees, we have to check it out.
So by February, we'll have a report on how they operate?
You'll have everything completely updated. I do want to ask Gabrielle Winter to come up because she can tell you what we do. We also offer tennis lessons with the city. So we have contract instructors that we have, and she can kind of explain that we're offering tennis lessons ourselves as the city of Glendale on different courts.
Well, yeah, because we have numerous parks that have tennis courts. We're really only talking about setting a fee on 2.
Right.
Because one is going to be removed. And then you have Shoal, which is an animal of its own because it's under the whole concession.
One thing I'd like to add before you speak, though, I have some questions as well for clarification, but what I'd like to do is, if it's possible, well, if we could hear from staff and then hear from the speakers.
Yes, there's quite a few.
And then I think we probably would have some follow-up questions ourselves.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, we're going on and on.
I just wanted to clarify, you had asked about instructors, and was there some priority for instructors? We do also, if an instructor calls our office looking for a location to teach, we let them know that we can coordinate with them a contract class. And we do that under our contract class program, where the city advertises the program, we take all of the registrations for the program, and we have an admin fee that's taken off the top of all of the registrations, and then we split the profit with the instructor. I believe it's a 35% to the city and 65% to the instructor. So that's another opportunity for tennis instructors if they're not able to get time at the two paid courts. And we offer these lessons at Montrose Park primarily. So it's one of our non-reserved courts, and we provide lessons there as well for the public.
Who sets that fee, the Parks and Rec Department or the instructor actually giving? Does the instructor tell you, I want to charge, $10 a person, or do we say you can charge $7.50?
That's a little bit of back and forth, basically. We look at what their attendance rates have been, the registration rates have been, and how much they've been charging, and how successful it's been up until that point. We've had one vendor who's been working with us for years now, and it's approximately $10 per child per lesson. We typically run a 10-week lesson, and it's about $100 for a 10-week lesson. So we base it on what has worked with the public and what people seem to be willing and able to pay. And if a vendor comes in, a teacher comes in and says, I want to charge $200 for a 10-week lesson, we would say, yeah, I don't know that that'd be very successful. We have this rate currently working for us, and we kind of go back and forth with them.
Okay. Thank you. Before we get into the public speakers, we've received, as stated earlier, a petition from the basically Fremont Glorietta, and then also quite a few emails that we will be reviewing, so just acknowledge. But why don't we hear from some of the tennis people that would like to speak, and we'll get back with Gary Poff. Sorry to cut you off last time, but this is the time. We'll deal with the issue.
Seems like I've been here before. Once again, good afternoon, everybody. As I was saying, I've been a resident of Glendale my whole life, and I've been a tennis player at Fremont Park for about 40 years. And there's a group of us that play on Thursday nights for 2 hours, and a group of 8 of us that play on Saturday mornings from 8 to 11. And sometimes, we rent 2 courts and whatever. So we've, paid quite a bit of, in fees to the city of Glendale. However, that being said, Fremont is a very fine tennis facility. It is well run, professionally, ethically, by Ron Zambrano, who's the current vendor. He has great respect from all of the tennis players down there. Excuse me. And it's, as I say, it's a wonderful facility. My concern is, obviously, being semi-retired, and most of the guys that play down there quite a bit are retired, is, the fees getting out of hand. I personally have no objection to a reasonable increase in the fees. However, in my personal opinion, they should be on a per-court basis per hour, not on an individual basis per hour. Because if you go to, right now it's $4.50 on Saturdays and $4.50 in the evening per hour per court. If you went to a $6 or $7 fee or something like that, that would be, reasonable. However, in the on the postcard here, you're talking about going to $3 an hour per person for residents of Glendale. You're talking about going to $5 per person per hour for non-residents of Glendale, and then $2 for seniors. Okay, we've got a group of 8 people on Saturday, for example. I'm a Glendale resident. I rent the courts and everything. A couple of the players that we have are not seniors. Most of them are seniors, and some live outside the city of Glendale. So I'd have to bring my calculator down in the morning and find out, and calculate how much to charge everybody. And so would, Ron, the vendor down there. I mean, it'd be a nightmare. He'd have to have a full-time bookkeeper there just trying to figure out how much to charge and whatnot. And I think there's a reasonable fee that you can come up with. And obviously you have the other situation, which I won't get into because it doesn't concern me, which is the professionals that are, using the courts down there for teaching. One thing I'd like to make note of, that in all the time I've been down there and playing, that at no time have I ever seen more than 6 or 8 students being taught on the courts. There's not 20 or 30 or 15 or whatever. It's most of the professional teachers down there are teaching the kids very serious tennis. Once they get up beyond the, they start out some at the toddler age, they're in the younger classes, but most of the classes down there are kids in the 10 to 14, 16-year range, and it's they're being well taught, and that's where the future tennis players for the city of Glendale, they're going to be going to Hoover High School, CV, Glendale High School. This is where they get their experience and have a chance to get on the the tennis teams and all that. So they are being taught in a very proper professional manner. Also, there was the one mention was something about whether you play at night or you don't play at night. Well, as far as changing the fees, well, we get down there. We have reservations from 7 to 9 on Thursday nights. All right, during the summer we get down there at 7 o'clock. It's light, but the last hour they have to turn on the lights. But now we get down there at 7 o'clock and it's dark and the lights are on. So that's kind of a strange area to think about. That's why I think that a reasonable per hour per court charge would be the thing to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or
George?
What would you deem to be reasonable, Mr. Puff?
I would say somewhere in the $6 to $8 range per hour.
Per hour.
How does it work now? Like you said, some of your friends come from out of town. No one's checking to see if they're resident, non-resident, anything like that?
No, otherwise I make the court reservations because I am, I play there, I'm the head of the group. I'm the one that has to, get the balls together and,
Sure.
Make the court reservations and whatever. And I'm the one that has to collect from everybody and then pay the vendor.
What do you typically pay? Playing,
Well, on Saturday mornings, we normally have 8 guys, and most of the time we have 2 courts. So we're paying
$6
$13.50 for each court, so $27 for the whole time, plus the fees for balls. And then, it gets to the point where, as seniors, a lot of them on fixed incomes, you get it too high and they're not going to be able to afford to play anymore. It's just with everything going up and whatnot. So there's got to be, something reasonable in there where it's fair to the city and the vendor and to the players. So.
Do you guys ever have a problem getting the court time?
No, we reserve a week ahead of time.
Okay.
Is it a problem for you if you have a friend in La Cañada? They have to show their ID or
well,
how do we monitor that?
At this point, there isn't that, but if
it's not effective currently.
If you went to the other situation...
I'm sorry, would you have a problem with it?
Yes. Well, I mean, you'd have to be checking people's driver's licenses. And, it'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
although it sounds like, based on the current system, with a new system of $6 to $8, that would be a revenue loss for the vendor. You're paying about $27 now for 2 hours. You'd end up paying
3 hours.
3 hours. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's $4.50 an hour,
Yeah,
so that's
4.50.
3 hours is $13.50.
On the weekends, yeah.
So actually, the instead of $13.50, they'd be getting at $7 would be getting $21, which is a pretty healthy increase.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, we have another speaker, John Ayers? Ayers? Very good. Also speaking on tennis.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, President Ward and Commissioners. I've also been a long-term resident here since 1978, and I'm originally from Florida, so I played a lot of tennis there. And I came out here, when I came out here, I've been in Glendale since '78, so I started looking around for courts and played. I think I've played on every court in Glendale, I believe. I might have missed some. And so I have a lot of experience with free courts and paid courts and so forth. And my best experience currently, I've been at Glorietta Park since probably about 1998. And we've been playing there consistently. I play twice a week. It is my mainstay of recreation, and according to my wife, my mainstay of therapy. And so it's very important in my life, and I have been fortunate enough to find two partners that are consistent partners, and then my experience at Glorietta has been terrific because when you get into a routine with it, then that's what you look for when you're playing tennis. So, and some of the increases, when you look at them, they seem reasonable. If you're just talking about renting a court and playing tennis, but I play twice a week. That's 8 times a month, and you can do the math in terms of whatever fee increases you guys come up with. And so it becomes a little more difficult. Both my partners are out-of-city partners. One works in Glendale, and that's why he plays here. And my other one is a Pasadena friend who I've been playing with, both of us, the same length of time at Glorietta. I'm not really sure I understand the benefits of making non-residents pay more. They certainly come into the city, often go out to eat after they play or purchase stuff here. And I had the same experience. I had an office in Burbank for 20 years and played at the Burbank courts for a while. And then I went to join the Burbank courts, and they wanted to charge me twice as much because I was a non-resident. So Glendale became extremely attractive at that point, and we started playing here. I also believe and understand and agree with this, the fee structure being convoluted, because you will probably need some kind of calculator. Let's say a senior, he's only $2, but what if he's a non-resident senior? Well, I don't know. Do we have a fee for that?
May be proposed.
Yeah, we may.
No, don't do that. I mean, no, that's just a joke.
Great idea, thank you.
You never know.
But anyway, the fee increases currently seem stiff depending on, what you're calculating, a resident, a non-resident, and all that kind of stuff. I think the per court, I also agree with the previous speaker that a per court charge is much more efficient and probably much more cost-effective overall to be able to control, and even with increases on those fees. The non-resident fee to me just seems to be unfair to Glendale. I would want to invite people to come here and play tennis, and whether they're residents or non-residents. I'd want to encourage people to play tennis, whether they're residents or non-residents. So I hope that they take a look at that issue. You guys take a look at that issue specifically. Like I said, currently I'm at Glorietta Park, and Vegan Kalarian runs the park. It's been fantastic since we've been there, and based on my experience with free parks and the vendor-run parks, I would always choose a vendor-run park because I can develop a consistency there. It's hard to go to some of these free parks and find that the tennis courts are taken. How long are you playing? Well, and so you either try to hang around and stuff. So they've never been very good. I've played both in the morning and in the evening, and I don't know that there should be a distinction made from that as well either, because of the situation that the previous speaker mentioned about. In the summer, basically, we don't have any lights. I play from 6 to 8, so in some cases I have no lights. Right now, I have lights as soon as I get there, so, it's a little convoluted in that way. But I'd like to see, I would prefer to see increases in a flat fee for the court, not in per person per court.
What range would you suggest due to the fiscal restraints and the things that the city is under? What hourly increase do you believe would be acceptable for your group?
Well, I wouldn't make a distinction between the early hours and the evening. I would have a one rate for the court, and I think an increase somewhere between the $4.50 now and $6 an hour probably would be a reasonable increase.
Yeah, the utilities for lighting all those courts sometimes are pretty costly, but okay, that's nice to hear your input.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Is that all the speakers?
Currently, that's the only cards I have. Do we have, okay, we have one from the audience. If not, maybe hear from the vendors if they wanted to speak.
Sure.
Okay, we need to
Yeah, we do.
all the time now.
Yeah.
Maybe we can meter the lights and vendors pay for it.
Yeah, have them click on it, click off. Marlene Schmidt?
Yes.
Yes,
Um,
please speak.
Good afternoon. I'm tall. Is there any
We
way
can hear
to-
you. Just
It'll
speak.
work. You don't have to pull on. It'll work.
Just speak into it, we'll hear
Can you
you.
hear me?
It'll
Can
work.
everyone hear? Okay. Well, I have been playing tennis for about 30 years here in Glendale. I'm a former resident of Glendale. I've moved to Eagle Rock. And all these years of playing tennis, we've been on 2 courts. We have a Saturday morning ladies group. We're mostly seniors, but sometimes we have to recruit some younger people because we get sick, we break our legs, we have injuries, what have you. So Saturday we play at Central Park, which is slated to be removed, and so far they've made no other provisions for those 4 courts, which is a very difficult situation. I'm working my way into this issue here, but as a result of that, you've decreased the other 2 courts on Pacific and Riverdale. You've taken those 2 courts out. You're not serving the people adequately, in my opinion, in the south end of Glendale where the income level is reduced. Now we're talking about increasing the fees for the remaining 2 major courts, and that probably will affect Shoal as well. Now, I'm also, on Saturday mornings we play, I don't know, are you hearing me okay?
Yes, perfectly. Just
My
keep-
voice is going a little bit, I'm sorry. On Saturday mornings we play from 9 to 11 at Central Park, and on Sundays we play, it's a group of ladies, and we play on Sunday 9 to 11 at Fremont. And this has been going on for 20 years. We don't have to reserve ahead of time. We've been a standing group, and we pay as we go. The same fee, whatever it is, the $4.50 per hour, and then we just divide it up, or whatever we do. We have different arrangements. Somebody brings the balls, then we charge $3 a person for the other 3, what have you. We work it out. Now, Central Park is the issue here with no court serving the south end of Glendale. So if you're increasing the fee, the issue here is you're increasing the fees and not really providing the courts. So everything's going to be jammed up in the other courts, and that's making the residents in the lower end of Glendale have to travel if they don't have cars, or there's really not a lot of bus transportation to some of these smaller little courts here and there. And a lot of those children that are taking lessons, and again, I have to agree with the gentleman here. I don't know if he's still here, but you don't see 20 or 30 or 40 people taking a lesson at one time. I mean, it's physically impossible. But a lot of these students have become very good tennis players, and it takes the children off the streets. So, I feel that you're getting... I know that everybody's got a budget crisis, but if you evaluate whatever your budget is for your Parks and Recreation for the various different departments or the various, you have ballparks and you have a whole lot of other recreational facilities, and estimate what you feel that the city can make up and then what the public can afford to pay. But most tennis players play at least 3 to 4 times a week. And if you have to pay, and a lot of the people that do play do not live in Glendale, and because we started here. I also belong to the Central Park Tennis Club, which is the ladies group of tennis players. We've had at least 100 or so tennis members, 125, and the club's 35 years old. We started right there at the Central Park tennis courts when they were the old courts with the overhead lights dangling and hitting our balls on the lights. And so the thing is that, we would like to help in any way possible, but the issue here is bigger than just the raising of the fees. And again, people come from outside of, people will move. If the courts go up in fee, then a lot of people will, they're migratory somewhat. They'll go somewhere else. And if the fees keep going up, you could join a country club for those fees these days. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have any of the vendors still here? Was anybody like to make a comment or any questions? I'd like to.
Good evening. My name is Ron Zambrano. I'm the vendor of Fremont Park.
Fremont, okay.
Yes. I got a letter telling you what's happening in Glendale. And I have to say that I was the first one to say that we need to increase the prices at the tennis courts because everything has gone up and the prices have not. In Fremont we have 8 courts, 8 lighted courts. So I had to pay for every week somebody come and wash them. Prices have gone up since 1996. The lights, the bulb lights, we pay $115 per each light bulb, and it's about, in an average about 1.5, but unfortunately this last 2 months I lost 8 light bulbs because of the change lights, so everything goes at once. What I would like you to take into consideration is whatever the tennis players have talked about it, and also it might be true that some tennis pros have 20 or 30 players and haven't seen it, because I consider that very responsible in both parts. From the parents bringing, if you take a math, if you have 30 players on a court, that means in an hour, one player hit 5 balls. You do a minute. So that is physically impossible. But I can't say that it doesn't happen. I haven't seen it. The way I run the tennis courts of Fremont is I don't allow anybody to have more than 10 kids per court, and that is my policy. I have written a different contract for the pros, so they can sign it and they follow it for a lot of reasons, as you can imagine. When it comes to locking the courts, that you were asking if we have power to lock and unlock the courts. The way I run Fremont Park is if I'm not there for lunch reasons, so I leave at least 4 courts open. If I'm there to collect, fine. If it's not, they're lucky they play for free. I have to let you know that a lot of people come without knowing that they have to pay. I allow them to not pay the first time because, of course, they don't know. We still have a lot of residents asking why do they have to pay their paying taxes. All those things have to be taken under consideration. And just make sure that you also take under consideration the vendors' expenses when you are deciding on the next bidding process how much is what you guys want, what is the percentage. Right. Insurance, the way the contract is written, it has risen probably 400%. We pay property taxes, which this year is going 200% up. All that, when you break all that into a monthly fee, we paying, besides the fee that I pay to the city, we pay at least another 30% more in expenses. So that has to be taken into consideration, because all that goes towards the tennis pros. We have to come up with that money somehow, because everybody has to make a living. And I spend over 80 hours a week in that park, 7 days a week. For me to take a vacation is a 2-year planning. I don't mind, it's okay, but that is something that we have to take under consideration. Thank you very much.
I have some questions.
Yeah,
I do.
sure, go ahead.
A couple things. First of all, what are your peak hour times? When is the busiest in terms of the tennis activity?
From 5 to 9 o'clock.
In the evenings?
And weekends from 8 to about 12.
Okay. And in terms of your private instructors and when they teach, what percentage during that peak hour time is used by private instructors?
The way I run the park is I have 2 full-time instructors, and they can use the court anytime they want. The way I have written the contract is they pay me a flat fee. I count their hours on a month, and I try to come out with as many hours, and I divide it for $5.50 or $6. But they pay that flat fee, and if it rains, and they don't have to. I mean, it's a flat fee. Rain, wind, lights out, whatever happened, that is the money that goes for me, because we have to pay a flat rate to the city. And so they have the courts at 14 hours, but most of the time they teach during the peak hours, but it's 2 courts.
Okay, so how many courts? You have 8 courts.
8 courts.
And 2 of those courts are exclusive
for the tennis pros, yeah.
For the tennis pros.
When they're there, yes. When they're not, it's for the public. They don't have a lock on those courts. I do. Yes, sir.
What percentage of the people that play are singles versus doubles?
I would say 60% is double and 40% is singles. Most of the people playing on Glendale is doubles. I would say even more, 75-25.
And what percentage are seniors?
That is hard to say, but I would say probably 15%.
15?
They 15. They play in the morning. Let me tell you, we have a flat rate for seniors in the morning, and it's ridiculous. I charge them $10 a month. They can play all day, weekdays, from 7 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we have quite a few during the summer, and the winter reduces to about half.
And do you have a full-service pro shop at the facility?
No, we don't.
String rackets, sell merchandise, do anything of that nature?
We do string rackets, but since we are also busy, we don't have time. We do it on the off time. Let's say I string 4 rackets a week for the people that play.
You sell balls?
Only to when it's needed. We don't have anything in the pro shop.
Okay, so you don't have a facility there that's like
no,
a
we don't.
shop?
We have probably 8 by 20 office.
And then also you said that you have 2 pros. Do you allow other pros to go to Fremont and rent spaces?
Definitely. The way I try to do it because of safety. The USPTA is a United States Tennis Pro Association, which, besides licensing the pros, gives an insurance for their players. That is something that I kind of recommend. Luckily, one pro that is already certified can sponsor up to 5 other pros. But everybody that signs the contract that I have has to have that protection. It's for my sake and for the city's sake. And so not anybody who wants to teach can come and teach. That would be irresponsible on my part to let a person pay $35 or $40 an hour for a person who doesn't know how to teach. But we do give opportunities to persons who teach by the hour. We have quite a few of those that we know.
You mentioned that this increase in fee was something that you may have triggered, or you were involved in.
Yes.
And we've asked the previous speakers what they thought was a reasonable rate for people to pay. I'd ask you that same question.
My suggestion for the next increase should be $6 an hour. That has been my suggestion for the last 2 years.
Per court.
Okay, per court.
Yeah, per person, it will become a full-time job and a fight with everybody.
What about resident versus non-resident?
I also suggested that, but some of the people have made some good points about the resident and non-resident. And the reason I suggested that is because a lot of the cities are doing it. Bourbon does it. I think the LA does it. But, that's something you have to take into consideration with the other comments of the other speakers.
What percentage of the users at Fremont would you say are non-resident?
I would say about 20%. Yeah. And most of it either live here or work here. Yeah.
I would personally think that if at least one player was a resident, we would probably go along with a resident rate. And so that one person, you're not going to get everybody's driver's license, as one of the letters said. But I would think that if at least one person is a resident of Glendale, because it makes sense that we want people to come into Glendale because they're doing more than just playing tennis. They're, maybe they're going out to eat in Glendale, maybe they're buying gas in Glendale, so they're doing other things while they're here. But I would think that at least one, if we go to a two-tiered rate, that if one person is a resident, that would suffice.
Well, what we used to have back when we started the concessions, we used to have we used to sell a card, little card. We charge $5 for the card with the information, and we give them a number. That was for the reservation system. If you go back to your paper, you find the reservation system, and we can go back to that. We can go back to.
So there's a fee for the reservation to be able to make a reservation.
It's $5 for the year.
Right.
Or we, that.
And then you could do resident, non-resident fee card for making reservations.
And the reason was because, I know most of these people. I've been playing on Fremont for 25 years, so I know most of my customers for a long time. But before, when a new person calls to reserve by phone, you have to get their phone, some kind of ID, because a lot of people reserve and don't show up. So before, we used to have the account number, and the policy is if you don't show up, you owe me for that money, and you will not get another court until you pay those $450.
Right, penalty fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question. If I wanted tennis lessons for my 10-year-old daughter, would I call you or the pro, and how much would it be?
We have different programs, and the most common program is that we offer is 3 hours a week for $120 a month. And those 3 hours are instruction. Then you can come at no peak hours. That is my policy. If you come at 3 o'clock after school and nobody's using the court and you're the student, you're under 18, you play for free as much as you want.
Is that 3-hour instruction in a group instruction or one-on-one?
Is usually about 6 players per the group.
And that's for youth. That's for adult. Is it a different fee?
It's a different fee. Yeah, adult we usually do hourly rate, and that varies depending on the person's skills, how much work we have to do.
Just one more question. I know that we have our own tennis instructors. Are we impacting your business by having that? Would it be better for us not to do that?
I know very well one of the instructors, Mr. J.V. Kim, who works with Ms. Winter, and they have a couple hours that they do it at Fremont. And when they have more people, the happiest they make me. It's something that comes. I love tennis, and the more people play, the better it is. So they have their program is getting better, and love it. No, doesn't influence
so it's
my
actually helping
business.
your business then at some point?
Yes, because eventually, like they mentioned, they will come and rent the courts to play.
Right. Yeah, when the program ends, they go to your facility.
Do you have, just out of curiosity, do you have a backlog in terms of during these peak times? Are you able to pretty much handle the folks that want to play tennis during the peak times?
Most of the time, yes. In the summer, we have a lot of college players, people that come and study, and sometimes from 7 to 9, everybody wants to play. And if I have 15 courts, I will fill them all in the summer. But most of everybody is satisfied.
Are they?
And if I may say, I think we've spoken to Mr. Zambrano about picking up part or maybe even all of the Central Park tennis players during the period where we may not have enough courts, and I think he had said you could accommodate most of that use, right?
What I said was that I can get one full-time, that's something to take into consideration. They have 4 courts and at least 2 pros. I can give one of the courts full-time to one of those pros, and we'll work it out with the people who play 3 times a week. We might have to take those times a week to accommodate the other people. The people that play at Fremont is really nice people, so I got no problem.
Try to accommodate them, during the construction time.
I got no problem.
And I know that we were actively looking for additional sites for tennis courts. So.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm just glad to hear from one of our vendors here.
Very helpful, thank you.
Yes. I think we're going to run out of time here. We have about 15 minutes left in our meeting, so let's move the agenda along. Next item.
Next item is 5B4, monthly activity reports. The first is Recreation and Community Services.
Again, just to move this along, Brittany isn't here. The report is here. If you'd like any questions answered, we certainly can do that. But it's your standard monthly report for the recreation section.
Any questions from our members? Okay. And the next item?
Item 5B4B, CIP projects and park rangers.
Again, I can turn this over to Dave. We did have a brief presentation on a pool project and what went on.
That'd be helpful.
Transpired.
Sure.
Yeah, at the city council meeting, and we'll try to keep the time in mind. And Dave can go through some of the options.
Yeah, I read about that in the news press. I like to hear some more details. That's a
You won't
key
get into
facility.
that since we don't really have.
Yeah. Is it a short presentation?
Yeah, we'll make it short.
I'll make it short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I can click it if you want.
Thank you.
Dave's having trouble doing both.
Feel the love. Let's see. President Ward, members of the commission, we previously presented, let's see. You're right. I am going to have trouble with this. Isn't it? It's not see, it wasn't the loose nut behind the keyboard.
That chewing gum and walking.
We previously presented design for the Pacific Park pool to the council in September. We presented a 4-lane design with a water play and splash area that relocated the existing tot lot from its current location out to the front of the plaza area, put the pool where the tot lot is, and put in a water play area, essentially a wading pool with a small water feature in it. And that came in at about a $5.4 million cost. Council's direction in September was to redesign that and come back with at least a 6-lane design and rethink at least six lanes and other design amenities such as shade structures, reducing concrete decking wherever possible, things of that nature, increasing the landscaping. So, hit that next one. So, what we did is we really looked at this and came back to the council last week. I think it was on the 24th. We brought them 4 new designs, and we started with a 6-lane design that modified what we had previously shown the council, in that we added 2 lanes, we eliminated the large entry steps that had run the length of the pool, and that was originally planned to provide for water instruction. So we reduced that from the full length of the pool, 75 feet, down to about 15 feet. So it creates a small entry area, smaller area for water instruction. We enlarged the shade structures, effectively double the size of the shade structures. We enlarged the children's playground that's shown there in the yellow and blue at the top of the screen, and that blue is actually child play area. It's not another aquatics feature. And then we, every place we could, we added more turf and took out the concrete. As you know from being out to that site, there's a lot of concrete in that plaza, and it's really kind of stark area. So this is the first design that we showed council. It comes in at about $7.9 million. Our next design is also a 6-lane pool. The difference here is the design in the last slide went from 3.5 feet to 5 feet deep. This design goes 3.5 feet to 13.5 feet deep, and the reason for that is it provides for diving. One of the council members had asked to have us include diving in the pool, so we added a pair of 1-meter diving boards at the deep end, went to a 13.5-foot depth. We expanded the water play area to include not only the water play, but a splash and spray area, or more of the water recreation components that you see in facilities today. We also added a water slide, and you see that toward the top of the screen there, directly above the pool itself. So that's it. There you go. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that again was another, water recreation component, and balancing this venue with swim amenities and recreation amenities for younger children, for tweeners, things of that nature. This came in at about $9.2 million, and a lot of that cost increase had to do with adding the slide, adding the spray areas. Going with a deeper pool adds a cost for excavation and construction and things of that nature. Then our next option, we added a lane and made it a 7-lane pool. All the amenities that you saw on the last slide, we just added a lane to this. And then in the final option that we showed them, we simply went to an 8-lane design, which was a desire of one of the council members. So we showed that design, and you can see the cost goes up with each lane, about $500,000. And those are very rough numbers right now. These are concept plans. These are not construction plans, so we don't have the ability to...
Is it a 50-meter pool or
25-meter pool.
25-meter.
Yeah, 25-meter pool. And again, this has, got the depth and all the amenities of the last design. So those are the 4 designs that we showed the council. You can hit the next slide. Just to summarize, what we had showed them back in September was about $5.4 million. You can see the costs graduate up to about $10.1 million, and they vary. And there seemed to be a lot of interest in a 6-lane design option at the council meeting.
Option B or C?
Some form of option B seemed to gain the most traction. Let's go forward. Yes, sir.
The area where you had the basketball courts in the pictures, is that area off limits because the school's using it, or we want to keep the basketball court there, or?
We simply, in our site analysis, came up with this as the preferred layout. You could take out the basketball court in theory.
I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's a very popular amenity. Gets a lot of usage. It's free, and it gets you real close to the building. And I'll tell you that that's one of the options that we've now looked at. We've gone back and, given the direction from council in the meeting last week, we've gone back to the site and spent a half day with the design team reanalyzing the entire site and identifying let's start again with a blank slate, and what are all the potential or possible places that you could fit this on this site. and then what are the pros and cons of each. And that's what we're working on now, and then we'll be bringing that back to the council, and then getting direction.
All the access is from the, kind of the west side, correct?
Actually,
The gate where you enter from?
right now, the current park, or what's being
With
proposed?
the design.
This design here, the access would be through that gray area, just to your right there. Keep going right there. That would be the administration building for the pool, so that's where the lifeguards would be, concession stand.
Changing room, all that
Changing room, restroom, so they'd come through there into that pool, in that layout.
Okay, that's,
so-
well, all the configurations of that layout. Okay.
Exactly.
I have a question, too.
Now, Dave,
Doug?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
No,
Yes,
go
ma'am.
ahead.
Are we going to look for new bids? Councilmember Yusefian said that maybe the way the economy was,
Yeah,
might be a good time to
And that's a great question. Again, council was talking about being a great time for bidding, and it is truly a great time for bidding. But we don't have any bids on this yet.
Oh, I see.
These
Oh,
totally
this is
designed.
just a-
These are
okay.
just totally conceptual cost, and we know that these are very rough numbers.
Okay.
And we expect to get much better numbers.
Oh,
when
great.
we
And I
get
think,
that.
if I may add, they did have a problem with the numbers, thinking it was high, and we tended to go a little high just to be on the safe side. What we're going to do is we're engaging two companies that do construction estimates to look at this design and tell us what they think it's going to come in at this
And
point.
then if there's an add or plus of options.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Did you get direction, or did they give you direction, like a number that they're looking at? Is there a certain...
Well, I think
Lower than 10.
the direction is to work within the funding that we have available and not look for additional funding. Although that wasn't specifically stated, that seemed to be the implication of direction.
Yeah, I think we have, one of the screens, we have the funding available, but it's...
It's not in this presentation,
Oh.
but it's about $7.5 million.
They didn't want to use the money we have in Griffith Manor, so leave that alone.
Right.
And the rest
And
of
these
it
are the
is-
add-on costs for the different entities. Okay.
These break out the components, and then the next slide gives you the operational cost, which is the other concern. And these operational costs, again, reflect having the water slide, having the splash, the spray, and Brittany's staff looked at this, and they really are experts on operating these facilities. And things that I certainly didn't know was how many staff you needed to supervise that water slide. You need 2 people.
Right.
And then you need another person, and suddenly you end up with 5 lifeguards. And so you end up with staff costs that are beyond what you might seem...
Even the
think of.
splash water feature needs to have someone watching.
Got to have somebody there,
Costs go
and
up.
so for the casual observer, you might think, well, you just put 1 lifeguard out there, but the reality is you end up with several.
Yeah,
And based on staff experiences, you can do a lot with a 6-lane. You don't really need to go to a 7 or 8 lane. If you're going to go the extra spending on that, you're
Pools
better
have
off...
the competition at the
Right.
schools for...
Right, you're better off spending that money on that big splash area, because that gets a lot of use by the toddlers, instead of another 2 lanes that could cost more.
So when do you guys go back now?
Council's directed us to bring this back in mid-January.
In January?
So we'll be working during this month on refining those designs that we've we did our preliminary analysis on Tuesday. Spent half the day doing that. So we'll refine that further and then put together a staff report and get it back in front of council in
Can we
January.
keep it on the agenda for the February then to have an update?
Absolutely.
That'd be fantastic.
Thanks.
Yep, I think we're running out of time here,
Yeah,
so...
we're running out of time.
Next, Park Services, the presentation.
Yes, the last monthly activity report under 5B4C is Park Services.
Sure it shows on the screen.
Oh, great. Okay.
Good.
Coco and I have quite a bit of work to do before we have another meeting. We have to figure out how much is going to be available at each field and standard sizes and that kind of stuff. And I will have a cost reduction and operational reduction and ideas next time we meet.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, commission and staff comments. George, do you have?
I have something that I think is really exciting, and I want to give you flyers, and hopefully we can show it on the screen. We're engaging an artist this weekend at the Chess Park, and this is they're called a Madonaro, and they do sidewalk art. And we've kind of commissioned her to do one of Michelangelo's pieces, which is the Creation of the Sun and Moon, which people have seen in the Sistine Chapel. Very familiar with people. It's going to be fantastic. So she's going to be out there this Saturday and Sunday. So for people who are watching, a great experience for kids, everybody really, to watch her create this piece of art. This Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 4. She'll be there 2 days. So
And this will be right on the concrete, right
on the
ground.
concrete.
How are we going to protect it overnight?
Oh, that's up to the artist to do, really. And they have ways of protecting it, but
Fantastic.
And what we're hoping, I think what we may end up doing is, what I wanted to do is see if she could put it on a surface that we can save and just move around to our different community centers to give
And
people.
show. You have to pour a slab for her and get a crane out there.
Well, I think more, different type of surface, but, yeah.
Very good. Very
It's
nice.
just to introduce people to this type of art.
Yeah, it'd be like
It's been
Mary
done
Poppins
before.
will go jumping.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Any other comments?
I had one quick question that I was curious about, George, and I can ask it real quick and then be done. In terms of things like this where you have the Chess Park and some of the other city parks, if a vendor wanted to set up a kiosk in these areas, could they go about doing that? And is that done in any of our other parks or park areas?
They could
Permit
work through
process.
us. I'm sorry?
Yeah, isn't there a permit process or something through your office?
Yeah, it would almost be like the concessionaire contract that we would have. We'd be able to set something up if they wanted to set up, well, let's say, a cart when they're selling coffee or something like that. Depending on, like the Chess Park, if it competes against another business there, we probably wouldn't do it. But in some of our other parks, let's say Verdugo, somebody wanted to sell coffee to the college students we can probably work something out.
A lot of it has to do with insurance and things.
Yeah.
Other
I'm just
comments?
curious. I was asked about that, and
Yeah, but I think Commissioner Ward is right, is the insurance requirements from the city may preclude smaller businesses from doing that. It's just so high.
Just real quick, the holiday decorations down Brand Boulevard, the department's working on today. I guess that's your department, Gary. They're looking really great.
That Public Works actually puts that up. Oh. The decorations on the tree you're talking about?
On Brand Boulevard. Down Brand Boulevard.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And tonight is the big tree lighting in
Good job.
less than 2 hours, so any written communications? One more?
Commissioner, one more thing. I know that Commissioner Khan asked about state, national, and local historic registry. We do have some information. This is from J. Platt. Let me give you that since we don't have a lot of time, but if you have any questions, we can certainly get Jay to come down and talk to us about.
Great.
And this was related to, I think, Rock Haven. But here's some information about that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now is that it?
Okay, item 7 is written communications, but we have none.
Have none? Okay, then we're going to adjourn, and our next meeting will be February 4th, 2009.